Biden's secret plot against Israel has been leaked. And frankly, nobody saw this prophecy coming. With just 2 weeks left in the current administration, whispers from diplomatic circles suggest they are planning a major shift in UN policy toward Israel to permanently damage them and their ability to defend themselves or resist the dividing of the land into a two-state solution. But because these guys, these crafty UN folks, do not read their Bibles, they do not know the final impact this will have, possibly the rise of the Antichrist. So let's get started. Sources indicate that the Biden administration may be orchestrating a significant move through the UN that would radically alter the dynamics of the Middle East. This completely unexpected turn of events has raised concern among Israeli officials and policy experts alike. We're calling this the Biden surprise. But this really shouldn't have caught any of us off guard. The president's mentor, this former U.S. president, pulled exactly the same trick when he turned over his presidency. In the final days of this man's administration, a surprise UN resolution declared all Israeli settlements illegal, including historically significant sites such as the Western Wall. Can you imagine that? Speculation abounds that the current administration will follow a similar playbook, using the closing days of its term to push through damaging resolutions. Now, the last days of a president's administration is a time where there's nothing left to lose. Public opinion no longer matters. The election's over, right? So the real deep-seated desires of the administration come out, ones that may not be aligned with the best interests of the public or the nation. This is Bible teacher Nelson Walters, and today, a shout out goes to Stephen Welp for researching this biblically prophetic and important topic for us. So what do we know? Reports from Jerusalem reveal that in its final days, the current administration is contemplating backing a UN Security Council resolution that would critically undermine Israel's standing on the world stage. Michael Duran, co-host of the Hudson Institute's Israel Update podcast, shed light on this potential strategy. Quote, the State Department might likely issue an official finding claiming that Israel is violating international humanitarian law by obstructing aid into Gaza. This fallacious finding could then be used as a basis for a Security Council resolution. The U.S. may abstain from their vote, just as they did in this previous president's administration, effectively allowing the resolution to pass. Such a resolution could then open the door for international bodies like the International Criminal Court to take punitive action against Israel. Now, UN resolutions like this can be passed either under Article 6 or Article 7 of a UN Charter. And this is really important, so pay attention. It sounds kind of nerdy, but it's very important. Well, an Article 6 resolution carries symbolic weight, and Article 7 resolution could authorize sanctions or even military action. And that just significantly raises the stakes. Nice final act to try and drive a stake into the heart of Israel, isn't it? Why are we telling you this now? Because you can pray about this situation. The most powerful weapon on earth is at your disposal. And you can watch and observe what is happening just as the New Testament commands us. It commands us to do this 16 times. Watch, for you do not know the day or the hour. Matthew 25:13. You know what a fraction of the world knows, what is likely coming, and what the difference between an Article 6 or 7 resolution means. So let's look at why the current administration might be taking the action it is now in this clandestine, last-minute way. What the new administration, the Trump administration, might do in response, and how this might affect biblical prophecy in the next 6 months. especially how it might lead to the rise of the Antichrist. So, what's driving the administration's policy? Why would this current administration risk Israel's ability to defend itself at the last minute? Obviously, this action could have been taken any time prior to the election being certified, but the administration realized that would be very unpopular with a significant portion of the population. So, first and foremost, know that this isn't a policy that is in the best interest of the people or the nation, but in the best interest of international globalist forces. Second, this move could be aimed at bolstering the prospects for a two-state solution, which the U.S. has been quietly advocating for, with the UN summit on that topic proposed for June. By applying pressure on Israel now, the administration might hope to weaken their negotiating power and force them to the negotiating table under more favorable terms to create a Palestinian state. Another perspective would be to consider the influence of a perceived atheist bias within certain elements of the American deep state. Critics argue that this ideological undercurrent drives a whole bunch of what they do, driving policies that are less sympathetic to religiously rooted nations like Israel or the U.S. and more inclined towards secular approaches in international relations. This bias could explain the seemingly inconsistent U.S. stance on Israel right now, both offering military aid, which, by the way, just realized makes money for the military-industrial complex, that might be why that's happening, while simultaneously undermining Israel diplomatically. CBN's Middle East bureau chief, Chris Mitchell, weighed in on this contradictory approach. On one hand, they're sending $8 billion in military aid to Israel. On the other hand, they're contemplating resolutions that could isolate and weaken Israel internationally. End of quote. Mitchell further remarked, Israel has delivered hundreds of thousands of tons of food and medical supplies, even though much of it has been exploited by the Hammies for black market profits and military leverage against their own people. So, just to make it clear, this isn't about misallocation of food or about genocide. It's about politics, international politics. And as we say on this channel a lot, the main thing is usually the main thing. And this year, the main thing is about the deception of the first seal, to put the covenant with the many, the UN Pact for the Future, into operation by forcing the division of Israel and the creation of a Palestinian state. They even have the date picked out, in June. Now, they're trying to weaken Israel diplomatically by doing this so they can't refuse. This is the main prophetic fulfillment. But there's one more potential fulfillment that most aren't seeing, and the new president, Trump, might cause this to happen. So what is his role in all this? When this previous U.S. president abstained from a critical UN security vote in 2016, Donald Trump's response was swift and decisive. Even before officially taking office, he condemned the move, calling it a betrayal of Israel. And upon assuming the presidency, he worked tirelessly to reverse its effects. He blocked attempts by international bodies to enforce punitive measures against Israel and reinforced U.S. support by relocating the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. You guys might remember some of that. Many speculate that if a similar situation unfolds under this current administration, Trump would once again take action, potentially urging the UN and other international institutions to back down. However, this is a new day and age. Satan and his fallen angels see a much bigger prize in their sights this time: the dividing of Israel, contrary to the Abrahamic covenant in which God promised the land of Israel to them forever. Also, the forces against Israel now have the backing of the Pact for the Future that they didn't have before, giving the UN and the World Court unprecedented power Trump may have been successful in helping Israel in the past, but my thinking is not this time. So instead, Trump may aim to help Israel defeat its greatest foe, and in so doing, unwittingly, help fulfill the prophecy that brings the Antichrist to center stage. Israeli officials are cautiously optimistic, about potential changes under the new U.S. administration. Many anticipate that President-elect Trump will take a hardline stand against Iran, and you can bet he probably will, and maybe greenlight Israeli action against the Iranian nuclear facilities. Such a move could dramatically alter the balance of power in the region. Iran's air defenses are down right now, and Syria's defenses have been crippled by Israeli strikes, one Israeli military analyst commented. If there's ever been a time to act decisively, it's now, end of quote. And although that would weaken one enemy, it might strengthen another. As the nations across the Middle East brace for potential upheaval, there is a growing sense that we may be witnessing historic shifts in regional power dynamics. Iran is on the way down, and Turkey is on the way up. Chris Mitchell concluded with a poignant reflection. Nations are rising and falling, and alliances are shifting. The prophecy that leads to the Antichrist is Daniel 8, the ram and goat war, which we've discussed many times on this channel. Historically, many scholars have understood Daniel 8 as only referring to events fulfilled in ancient Persia and the Greek empires, namely the rise of Medo-Persia, the ram, and Alexander the Great, the goat. However, some modern interpreters, me included, see this as a dual fulfillment and see the ram as Iran and the goat as a power based in or led by Turkey. At the end of this video, we have a link to another video which will explain in detail why we think that way. If we consider this a dual fulfillment, past and future fulfillment, a future war is anticipated then where the goat attacks and defeats the ram. Turkey defeats Iran, paving the way for subsequent end-time developments, including the rise of the Antichrist. That's why this is so important. Now, how might an Israeli strike hasten this conflict? If Israel launches a strike on Iran's nuclear facilities, yes, it would help Israel by significantly damaging Iran's capabilities. Iran could be weakened, and a successful Israeli operation would possibly degrade Iran's ability to retaliate with advanced weapons, nuclear or otherwise. But these same things could embolden Iran's other foes and maybe accelerate existing tensions, maybe shift the balance of power more quickly than we anticipated. So in the aftermath of an Israeli strike, Iran's leadership could feel compelled to respond to save face domestically, which could accelerate all these things even more. This ministry has always suspected that Iran will reveal a man they claim is the Islamic Messiah, the 12th Imam. There's nothing like a savior to save face, but Iran is Shia Muslim. The other branch of Islam, the Sunnis, would find a Shia savior very offensive, to say the least. And this would likely instigate them to consolidate and take action to remove him. In end-time scenarios, such an alliance or bloc is sometimes depicted as having significant roles in later chapters of Daniel or in Ezekiel's prophecies about Gog and Magog. So this consolidation, this forming of an alliance, could very easily pave the way for the rest of Bible prophecy. So within this prophetic framework, an Israeli strike now could expedite the timeline. Instead of a long, drawn-up build-up to some war between Turkey and Iran, it would be hastened if Iran was forced into a weaker posture. A diminished Iran would cause Turkey to step in more assertively and lead to an alliance of regional Sunni powers. So an Israeli strike on Iran would accelerate power shifts necessary for a Turkish-Iranian confrontation. This is exactly what the Bible foretells, by the way. In Daniel 8, where the goat flies over the ground to destroy the leaders of the ram. And it is from that conflict that the Antichrist will arise, which really is the central point about what all this is about. So we have a couple American presidents, a series of them, playing games, so to speak, with international politics, causing the UN to do something over here to weaken Israel, or allowing Israel to take a step in attacking Iran. And these actions then lead to something with worldwide catastrophic consequences. If you want to see how that might happen, click right here and keep watching. The Biden surprise might be more surprising than anyone in that administration or anyone reading their Bibles has ever dreamed, if the Antichrist arises from it. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.